Okay. Right. So good evening, everybody. Welcome to another session of the book club. We have a new book. We have a Booker Prize winner, a very fascinating book, really. The Seven Moons of Maali, Almeida. I mean, I haven't finished reading it, but it's an amazingly imaginative book. And I'm so glad that Sheena has chosen it. Sheena Shahani, I think today based in Pune, but often based in Dubai, is going to make the presentation. She comes from the world of HR and journalism, and she's a great reader, voracious reader, and an insightful reader. And I suspect she might have made another of her super duper slideshows, which is very, very good at. So Sheena, over to you.
Thank you. Sunita, what do I do now? Share screen. Okay.
Yep.
And everyone now go on mute.
Yeah, we can see it, Sheena.
Okay. Excellent.
Oh, beautiful.
How do I put it in PowerPoint mode? There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Once again, hello, everybody. And I am so excited to be talking today on The Seven Moons of Maali Almeida by Shehan Karunatilaka, which won the Booker Prize for 2022. Because as Mohini said, it is such a fascinating book. Even 2 reads are not enough for me. The Seven Moons of Maali Almeida was announced as the winner of the Booker Prize on October 17, 2022, at a glittering ceremony in London, attended by Queen Consort Camilla. Its author, Shehan Karunatilaka, was born in 1975 in Sri Lanka and grew up in Colombo. He was educated partly in Sri Lanka and then in New Zealand, going to high school there and then finishing off at Massey University. Lucky for his readers, us, he graduated in English literature against his family's wish that he study business administration. His first novel, China Man, The Legend of Pradeep Matthew, published in 2010, won the Commonwealth Book Prize and has been described by many reviewers as the best novel ever written on the game of cricket. But before publishing his debut novel, Karunatilaka worked in advertising and has also written rock songs, screenplays, and travel stories, as well as features for The Guardian, Newsweek, Rolling Stone, GQ, National Geographic, Condé Nast, the Cricketer, and the Economic Times, and others. A musician, he has played bass with Sri Lankan rock groups and the British folk music band, the Brass Monkey. He is considered one of Sri Lanka's foremost authors. He has resided and worked in London, Amsterdam, and Singapore. And when not traveling on the book stump these days to promote the Seven Moons, lives in Colombo. I thought that Karunatilaka was a gay man because he gets into Maali's psyche so well, but he's not a gay man. He's married with 2 children, happily married, judging from his Instagram account. Okay, so Shehan Karunatilaka is only the first Sri Lankan to win the Booker. Michael Ondaatje, who won the Booker for The English Patient in 1992, is Sri Lankan born, but a Canadian citizen. Another Sri Lankan writer came close in 2021. Anuk Aruth Pragasam made it to the shortlist with A Passage North, which we had discussed on our forum, but didn't win. Notwithstanding, all 3 of them are great books and should be read at least once. So The Seven Moons of Maali Almeida, which was published in the Indian subcontinent in 2020 under the title Chats with the Dead, is Karunatilaka's second novel. Karunatilaka's British publisher told him to rework, rewrite, and rehash the novel with a different title. And that's exactly what he did, using his 2-year pandemic downtime wisely. The Seven Moons was published in the UK in August 2022 and went on to win the Booker in October of the same year. Both his novels have names of men in their titles, Pradeep Matthew and Maali Almeida. Maybe that's a good luck charm for him. While any of the 6 shortlisted books would have been a worthy winner, what the judges particularly admired and enjoyed in The 7 Moons of Maali Almeida was the ambition of its scope and the hilarious audacity of its narrative techniques. This is a metaphysical thriller, an afterlife noir that dissolves the boundaries not just of different genres, but of life and death, body and spirit, east and west. Agreed the judges. Coming to the novel at hand, let's break down the title. First, Maali Almeida. When I first came across this intriguing and catchy title after it was longlisted for the Booker Prize, I thought that Maali was a gardener. No, he isn't. That's his name, or rather a short form of his name. Maali Almeida, known variously throughout the novel as Malin, Mal, Malinda, is Malinda Albert Caballana, or Malinda Almeida, the protagonist. The novel is narrated by Maali, or rather his ghost. As when the book opens, the setting is the afterlife and Maali is dead. It is interesting to note that in his lifetime, Maali changes his birth name from Malinda Albert Caballana, dropping his father's surname and taking on his mother's maiden last name, Almeida, for personal reasons, after the father walks out on the mother, and for professional reasons, not to identify himself as Sinhalese, especially after the 1983 anti-Tamil pogroms or massacres. These were carried out by the majority Sinhalese mobs, often with state support. As the book opens, Maali finds himself in what looks like an immense visa processing center for dead people. It takes him a while to realize that he is dead, and so is everyone around him. He doesn't know the time of his death or the cause. When he reaches the front of the queue, the lady behind the counter tells him that he has 7 moons to reach the light, whatever that means. Now, the 7 moons. Again, I misunderstood. I thought 7 full moons, he has 7 months to rectify things. Nothing of the sort. He has just 24-hour units of time to complete unfinished business. Or as the clerk behind the window tells him, to enter the light. Because the moon is there every night, even though we don't see it always. 7 moons is 7 sunsets, 7 nights, a week in Earth time. When he asks around, he finds a light to mean heaven, rebirth, or oblivion. So Maali, who in his life before death was used to deadlines, once again finds himself in a race against time. He is told by helpers at this center that every soul is allowed 7 moons to wander the in-between region, to finish whatever it is that dead beings have to finish, and then to forget this just finished life, so that they cross over to another land called the light. Now that I have deconstructed the title somewhat, let's go into the story. The hero of this novel is dead, and he'd like to find out why. It takes him a while to process this information. While he was alive, he never believed in the concept of the afterlife. He remembers almost immediately that he is a professional photographer and an inveterate gambler. He always talked in terms of chances and odds, and he starts doing that just now. The chances of finding a pearl in an oyster are 1 in 12,000. The chances of being hit by lightning are 1 in 700,000. The chances of birthing conjoined twins is 1 in 200,000, and so on. The odds of the soul surviving the body's death are 1 in nothing, 1 in nada, 1 in zilch. So he's certain that he's asleep and soon he will wake, or so he thinks. He looks down to see that his trusted Nikon camera is hanging around his neck. But now the camera is dented, its lens cracked, and stained with blood. He soon accepts that he really is dead He is in this place called the in-between. He is not down there as Earth is referred to. And it all starts to come back, but in bits and bobs. You were cursed with the gift of never forgetting a name, a face, or a sequence of cards. Yet you remember nothing, not the pain, not the surprise, not the last breath, not where you took it. He says, he has short-term amnesia, an affliction newly dead souls have to shut out the horror of their death. So the novel is organized into 7 sections, each one named for one of the moons of the titular seven moons. Maali does not remember how he was murdered or who murdered him and why, when and where. So the novel has the familiar stirrings of a murder mystery. As established so far, the protagonist, the narrator of this novel is the eponymous Maali Almeida, and the narrative is in the second person you, and not in the self-aggrandizing first person I. This in itself is a striking fact about this novel, as the second person pronoun is a difficult narrative voice to sustain meaningfully and entertainingly for nearly 400 pages. Yet Karuna Tilaka succeeds in this. So thus starts his and our 7-day odyssey. And in this journey of the in-between, a state of limbo, Maali has 2 teachers, 2 souls to guide him. The first is Dr. Rani, a Tamil moderate university professor murdered by the Tamil separatist group, the LTTE, the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Elam. And the second is Sena, a young Marxist revolutionary murdered by the government. Dr. Rani is a helper in the afterlife, tasked with helping dead souls to forget their life on earth and reach the light. Sena, on the other hand, is an angry and vengeful ghoul who wants to punish those who killed him. He has already passed 35 moons in the in-between and doesn't want to let go just as yet. And how does Maali know that he was murdered? Because it is Sena who tells Maali that his decapitated head was dumped in the Beira Lake, whereas his dismembered body is in the morgue, waiting for incineration. Both Maali and Sena's bodies, that is, we learn in the 4th moon section, that Maali's remains are ironically given a state funeral of sorts. Curfew is declared and the Minister of Justice personally escorts Maali's torso and limbs and some incriminating photographs taken by Maali to the crematorium for incineration. So who exactly was this Maali Almeida? And why was a minister feeling threatened by his corpse and photos? If he had a tombstone, it would bear his birth certificate name, Malinda Albert Cabellana, 1955 to 1990. If he had a business card, it would have his professional name, Maali Almeida, photographer, gambler, slut. But he has neither a tombstone nor a business card because his human remains have been disposed and he is not alive to take pictures. So the 7 moons of Maali Almeida is set in civil war-torn Sri Lanka of the 1980s. The atrocities, horrors, massacres of the 80s committed not just by the Liberation Tigers, but the Marxists, the Sri Lankan army, the Indian peacekeeping force, the Special Task Force, and sometimes by 2 or more of the above agencies combined, were all captured by one man and his lens. Maali was a professional war photographer who took daring, horrific, and gruesome pictures with his Nikon ST. He had also been a fixer for the foreign press covering the war. He had gone to dangerous places, risked his life taking pictures that foreign agencies wanted, been in places he shouldn't have been, brokered meetings between the army, the LTT, and foreign journalists, thereby earning himself a packet, which he promptly blew up at the poker tables of his nearby casino. You're supposed to be a fixer for the Associated Press, he says. Do take reporters where they want to go. Get them interviews. Make sure they're not killed. And now you're dead, the narrator says. So Maali Almeida was killed in December 1989, the author tells us, because that was when his head was found in the lake. The location is Sri Lanka. The son of a Sinhalese father and a Tamil burgher mother, he tells his story skillfully and vivaciously, with deadpan humor mixed with unnerving, fearless descriptions of the Tamil genocide committed during the Sri Lankan Civil War of the 1980s. The second person narration pushing the reader into Maali's place during his week-long post-mortem odyssey also enables us to empathize with the self-deprecating Maali, who describes himself as a lensman, gambler, alcoholic, and slut. How does he grade himself? Gambling D-, fixing C+, screwing B-, and photography A+. Since he uses the pronoun you and not the self-aggrandizing I, it does not sound like he's boasting. He tells you he was very good looking and he was very good at photography. And apparently he was not just good, he was very, very good. He states that he considered neither faggot, nor homo, nor queer, nor sissy, nor ponia, Tamil for impotent homosexual, as slurs, because he didn't count himself any of these things. He was simply a handsome man who enjoyed beautiful boys. And he wasn't a closet gay either. He didn't hide his sexuality, even though this was 80s Sri Lanka, not today. So you, the reader, like this guy, and you want him to accomplish whatever he wants to do before his 7 moons are up. What exactly does he want to do? He wants to find his murderer, of course. But more pressingly, he wants to contact the man and woman he loves most and lead them to a hidden cache of photos that he thinks will rock Sri Lanka. So he floats around in this in-between region. He finds murdered entities occupy every inch of Colombo, the main setting of the novel, and every other place which has a certain mobile quality to it. The dead move and glide and fly in the wind on top of planes and trains and vans and casinos and automobiles, like Patrick Swayze's character in the 1990 film Ghost, standing neck to neck with the living in their rooms, their chairs, beds, palaces of torture, jungles where the bodies of the murdered rot in the heat, polluted lakes where the dismembered limbs and skulls are thrown, blowing and breathing and whispering in their ears, listening to their conversations, responding to them and talking to each other. The narrative layering is deftly done throughout the novel, and the alternating voices of the living and the dead, side by side in the same place and time, raises the possibility that the visible world is suffused with negotiations and transactions taking place in an invisible realm. The novel is smart, it is funny, it is moving, but it is ultimately the heinous territory of genocide, torture, dismemberment, beheadings, and assassinations that we traverse. In a sort of Three's Company scenario, Maali had shared his residence with another woman and another man at a fancy address. The woman, a broadcaster, was his best friend, Jackie. The man, a corporate turned environment lawyer named Dilan Dharmendran, or Didi, was a woman's cousin and Maali's lover. Later, we find out that Maali and Didi had gone to the same school. The apartment belonged to the lover's father, a junior cabinet minister, Stanley Dharmendran. This arrangement continued up to Maali's death. Memory comes to you in bodily ailments, he says, in sneezes, in aches, in scratches, and in itches, even though there is no longer a body. Memories come to you in gasps and chokes and loose motions. You remember bits and you retrieve pieces. Sorry, this is a picture of the lovers. So between Elvis and Freddie's hits, he has shot thousands of photos. Elvis's first hit was Heartbreak Hotel, 1956, and Freddie's last hit was in 1991. And between the two, he had shot thousands of photos, and he had stacks and stacks of prints, which are stored in boxes in 2 homes, under the bed of the sharing apartment, and also at his mother's house in the servants' quarters. So this is a man who's seen death at kissing distance, has seen dead bodies more than his fair share, as a bemused observer of the carnage on all sides, Tamil, Sinhalese, the military, the Marxists. He has photos of these. Among these are photos of the government minister, the minister of justice, an emperor Nero-like figure who looked on while the savages of 83 torched Tamil homes and slaughtered the occupants. Portraits of disappeared journalists and vanished activists, bound and gagged and dead in custody. The mother and daughter buried under bricks. The 10 students burnt on tires. The planter tied to a tree with his entrails. The mother with a dead child in her arms. The old man peppered with shrapnel. There are grainy yet identifiable snaps of an army major, a tiger colonel, and a British arms dealer at the same table where they're not supposed to be, sharing a jug of local brew, and the killers of actor and heartthrob Vijay Kumaratunga, husband of Sri Lanka's woman Prime Minister Chandrika Kumaratunga, on film. Now, the king and queen motifs run all across the novel, from the worlds of gambling and rock and roll and sexual innuendos. So the boxes had 5 envelopes, each named and marked after a playing card. And the ace had pictures sold to the British embassy. King had photos commissioned by the Sinhalese army. Queen was snaps bought by a Tamil NGO, the Canada-Norway Third World Relief. The first 3 envelopes had commissioned photographs. The last 2 envelopes were personal. So the Jack of Hearts had pictures of young and handsome boys and men, not Didi, his casual sex partners. And the 5th envelope was titled 10 and had pictures taken of Didi and Sri Lanka at its prettiest. Maali had started out first as a wildlife photographer before turning to the war zone. Unfortunately for Maali, he blabbed and rattled off a lot of things when he was drunk. And a few people knew about these boxes. Both boxes were confiscated by the police on a tip-off from one of Maali's employers, the Queen of Spades, and landed in the hands of the Minister of Justice, who is the boss of the police force. But all is not lost. Our man was clever, and the boxes were just a decoy. And he has negatives. So it takes him a while to remember where those negatives are, and then he remembers. So he remembers that he has these negatives in the flat, in a shoebox with old records by Elvis and Freddie, the king and queen. If you would make 1,000 copies of each photo and plaster them all over Colombo. Perhaps you still can. Now, Major Raja, the king, Elsa, the queen, and Johnny the ace, his 3 employers, did not know, and this is very important, that his Nikon used rolls of 36 frames and not 32, which meant that he got to cut out and keep 4 from each roll, and they were none the wiser for that. So now someone needs to get hold of these negatives and make these copies, so he needs to contact his bestie, Jackie. How does he manage to contact Jackie? Sena, the ghoul, teaches Maali to ride the wind and then harness the wind. Very soon, Maali can teleport just like the characters did in Star Trek and Blake 7. Sena tells him that he can go wherever he wants, provided he hears his name being spoken. Maali manages to contact Jackie through a medium called the Crow Man. Then Dr. Rani teaches Maali to enter Jackie's dreams and whisper to her. Because of this, Jackie manages to find first Maali's address book and then his negatives. So the negatives are sealed in plastic casing and sellotape to His Hand in Mine by Elvis and Hot Space by Queen, both of which are terrible albums by great artists, says Maali. Not many would want to play these, he says. On the inner sleeve, he taped a note asking the finder to take it to a specific photo printing shop. The photo developer in turn guides Jackie to the art gallery owner who promised to exhibit the photos. So Jackie is tasked with contacting the photo printer and the art gallery owner, both friends of Maali's. Meanwhile, while Maali is on a mission to find out who killed him, he's also appalled to discover that the bad guys, the government and the military forces, are after his lover and his friend Jackie. So now, why did Maali publish these photos during his lifetime? One might ask. Because he wanted to go to San Francisco with his lover Didi and publish them from a distance. He didn't plan to die so soon. And he hoped that one day his photos would win him the Pulitzer Prize. His plan was to orchestrate this from exile. Instead, he does it from beyond the grave. Bravo. The novel, in effect, merges three or more genres: murder mystery, ghost story, historical novel, political satire, and the supernatural thriller. Into this melange, Karunatilaka weaves a homosexual love story between Maali and Didi. The novel gives a panoramic and gritty view of the gay subculture of Colombo and rural Sri Lanka. It also more interestingly and more ambitiously explores the limits, constraints, and mechanisms of translating between times and places within narrative borders. How do the living communicate with the dead? How do those borders look? How do you move between life and death, between language, thought, and silence? Karunatilaka's Civil War novel is a fearless take on a vast and painful national subject, not to restage historical inequities and hostilities, but to stand with Sri Lanka by amplifying the voices of its dead against oblivion and invisibility in the march of time, against a 25-year tragic period which all but destroyed the country. And now I have for you spoiler questions. Okay, so that is the story of Maali Almeida, who had a penchant for casinos, war zones, and beautiful men. Partly his story. I haven't given the whole story out. So these are all the questions that would constitute spoilers. Did he lose his life over his pictures? Who killed him and why? How did he die? Which path will he opt for after his 7 moons are over? Revenge, rebirth, or oblivion? Will he enter the light, or will he be stuck in the in-between? Will he have posthumous fame over his pictures? Please read this excellent novel to find out. Thank you.
You did the
Well,
right
wow.
thing. You have done the
Wow.
right thing by not telling the spoiler alert. I
Yes.
did read part of the book, etc., as Moini would have told you. But after a while, well, I got left out and I forgot about it completely.
Yeah.
When I tried to borrow it, I was very, very much low in the line at the NYPL where I get my books from.
Yeah,
Anyway,
and the fact that we
coming back,
possess a print copy is immaterial to Satish because he
Oh,
only reads on the screen.
did you have it?
Of course, I have it. I'm reading it in front of you.
Oh God.
I
This
also
is-
have it in case anybody wants to borrow it. You can download it from me.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
initially, Sheena, when I started reading it, one thing that put me off was all the gore. You
Yeah.
know, oh, the bodies and
sorry
the
about-
and the stench and the
Sorry about those pictures, but it couldn't be helped. Yeah, but these things
no, but
really
I
happened.
no, but going through that, it was very ghastly, you know. So I had to plow my way through. And since anyway, I was trying to read quickly, you know, I was quite happy to zoom through those parts so that they didn't affect me too much. But it is a brilliantly written book, I will say that. Brilliantly written. And the things he's thought of, my goodness, you know, when you said that there are ghosts and spirits and all that, all over the place. I mean, standing right next to you, whispering in your ear, sitting on your shoulder, you know, all that. It reminded me of that movie, Sixth Sense, remember? So, you know, this little boy who can see ghosts. And I thought, oh my God, this is like that. But of course, this is, well, pretty ghastly, but very brilliant. Yes, go on. Other people pitch in, please. Runa, unmute, please.
Are all the questions answered in the book?
Um,
All of them?
Well, you know what?
Question mark. Just
No. You know what? The ending, I was hoping that somebody had read the book.
Hmm.
I've read it twice,
Hmm.
but I still can't figure out the ending.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it.
It's got maybe 3 endings.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. So I need somebody to read it and discuss this with me.
Ashwini,
Yeah.
Ashwini is the
I've read
person
it.
there.
Yeah, I've read it. I actually listened to the audiobook, which makes
It's
it a lot
amazing.
less gory
Yeah.
for some reason, because you just get swept away in the beauty of the madness, if there is such a thing. It was very enjoyable as an audiobook. And yeah, there is a lot of gore, but I guess that was how Sri Lanka was during that period.
And that was his job, right? To
Yes,
photograph this
yeah,
war.
yeah. And he sought these places out, and he considered himself lucky that he always found himself at at the right place. But yeah, in terms of the end, Sheena,
Don't.
no,
Yeah.
no,
Did
no,
you
no,
understand
no,
me?
no,
Yeah.
not at all.
Yeah.
No, it was actually it was like a whodunit for the better part of the book as well, wasn't it? But it was a very inward looking whodunit, because he was trying to find out how he died. But didn't the second ending, well, it wasn't really sequential, was it? I thought it just went 3 different ways, but all 3 could coexist.
That's
This
what
was-
I also thought is very open-ended. And
Yeah.
everybody who reads will have a different interpretation about which way it went or goes. So
Yeah.
I think that you all should get around to reading it,
There's a lot of humor in it as well.
Yeah.
And
All the time. In fact, there's humor
There's a
all
lot
the
of humor,
time,
yeah.
isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter that what you're talking about is so ghastly,
Yes.
but there is always humor there.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I guess is also a way of looking at this man's character. That's what keeps him alive through all this gore he's going through.
He's a very brave man. That's what comes out.
Yeah, but he does he see himself like that? I thought he just
He doesn't say, but he boasts about his looks many times.
a
But
lot,
because it's
yeah.
you, so you think it's somebody else.
Yeah.
It's not I, it's you. So that's, that sort of takes it away from there. But
yeah,
he keeps saying he's a good looking man. And
yeah.
many
Beautiful
times,
man, yeah.
beautiful man. And that he took very good photographs. That goes without saying. He made a lot of money. He wouldn't have made a lot of money, and he's so well connected with the people who matter. Yeah.
Also, I think there was an interesting. I love what you said, Sheena, about how putting the whole story in second person lets him say whatever he wants about himself without sounding like a post, right?
Narcissistic.
Yeah, narcissistic. Yeah. The other interesting thing I thought was that the fact that he was a ghost or he was dead let him go and let him get into spaces which as a live person he wouldn't have been able to go to. So you got different perspectives, what Jackie thought, what what the minister thought, and so on. So it was an interesting device, I felt.
And there was a part where he became so good at it that even if his name was whispered on a telephone call, he'd be able to go to the other side and listen to that part of the conversation. And I don't know if I just feel that that Shehan has written this book so well, getting into the psyche of a homosexual man, and written it so beautifully, That's what I felt. And also I felt that Maali is a ghost, but to me, he's so vibrantly alive,
Yes. Because it's his mind that we're concerned with, after all.
Yes.
It's his mind. I mean, never mind that the body isn't attached to it.
True. Yeah. So true. Yeah, like he keeps taking pictures, even although he knows he can't really take pictures, the lens is cracked and the camera doesn't work. But he keeps, I think, looking at things and the world through that camera, even after
through the lens.
But are you all not wondering now who killed him and why? I'm sure everybody is wondering.
Oh.
Whoever didn't read the book yet or hasn't finished the book.
Yes, but it could be anyone. He could have been actually accidentally killed in any of the sites where he was taking a picture. For all you know, in the whole melee, he could have died by that. He could have.
Okay.
So yeah.
Except that he's very sure that he's rubbed so many people the wrong way, and that he's done so many transgressions, let's say,
Yeah.
you know, going
I
to
feel that he should have died much before this.
considering the
Because
risks
he was
he
in the
took.
wrong place at the wrong time many times.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he lived dangerously. That's
Climbing
for
onto
sure.
trees and taking pictures and things like that.
So probability, no?
Yeah.
Sooner or later it had to happen that way.
But I
And
know
he
what
gets-
happened.
If he gets an
You know.
almost state funeral, very
Yeah.
clearly the government didn't, or maybe they did and then covered it up by giving a state funeral. Sometimes a person
No,
is put away.
that was sarcastic.
Okay.
When I said state funeral, the Minister of Justice personally took his bones in his Mercedes Benz.
Okay.
I mean, he wanted to be sure that even the corpse is burnt and there is no trace of this Maali man ever, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Ah.
just imagine they closed the town, they closed the capital for 12 hours,
Mm,
from 12 to 12,
Yeah.
you know.
mm.
And this minister went to the crematorium where the police escort was waiting, and he personally saw to it that the bones and the photographs
Mm.
were burnt.
Yeah.
Sheena, I just have a comment, and this is my third Sri Lankan author. I remember reading a lady author maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and then of course there was Passage North, and then there's this one, and they're all set in the time of this, of the Civil War.
Yeah.
And I just feel that it is so deep in the psyche of the authors. And I'm sure there may be many other stories. I feel like I want to find a Sri Lankan author who has written about something else, but it is so deep in their psyche of this whole Civil War that has really,
There is an
had made
author
someone
called
imagine.
Gunaratna. I think he's British Sri Lankan. He writes about other things. Yeah. But this Tamil, this whole thing, where I was very young when it started. I was
30
in my
years,
early
no? It
20s.
carried on
Yeah.
for 30 years.
Yeah,
So
25,
it would-
26, yeah.
it would
So,
buy-
yeah. So
bound
it
to
just
affect
went
you.
on and on and on and on, and yeah. But one thing the author does not overstep. Maali never gets to meet Supremo Prabhakaran. Thank goodness. That was really gone over the top. You know? Yeah, that was one photograph he never got. Yeah. Any other questions? You can't ask many questions because you've not finished.
Monali.
Hmm.
Monali, you're there, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Want to make
Listening.
a comment?
I was quite overwhelmed by the way this had been presented. Thank you very much, Sheena ma'am. It was really very beautiful. But the way you had been talking about it, the way you had been talking about the kind of violence that existed, the way people died, I can get a whiff of how unpleasant the description could have been. It reminds me of a novel I'd read long ago, about a decade ago. It's called Blindness by Saramago. And that also talks about the stench and bodies piled up. And the situation was very much like Corona. So people just went blind, and the blindness was it was contagious. So it just reminded me of that. But thank you very much. It brought a very different kind of a narration. And now I regret not having read this book, but now I'll find out what to do about it. But thank you.
I am contemplating reading it for the third time. Maybe I'll understand it even better.
It deserves that. I guess it does deserve that. So yeah.
Sanjay, what about you? Would you like to weigh in?
You're
We
on
can't
mute.
hear you.
You're on mute.
Unmute, please.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? I got a bad throat. Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Well, what I liked about was the manner in which it's written, in the sense that the prose is really electric. It's very fast paced, and the book is kinetic in the sense that one thing keeps happening after another. And it brought, I mean, I thought it was a bit like a music video where there's a continuous bombardment of visual images. So, something similar I found in this prose. I thought it was exceptional. And the other extraordinary thing was I found was how surreal it was. The images were really something that would you like you mentioned Dante's Inferno, or if Picasso were to write a novel with his characters, it would look like this. So those are the two things which struck me, and which make this book very different from some of the other stuff that I've read. I quite enjoyed it actually.
So you finished it?
Yes, I did. Finish.
Oh, great.
I
Okay.
did finish.
Okay. Good. And Noellen had something to say as well. She was just telling me the other day about something nice. I think she's halfway through. Noellen, are you
You're
there?
on mute, Noellen. Yeah.
Yes. No, I'm here. Actually, I quite enjoyed the book. I didn't finish it. I'm still at 45%, but I hope to finish it in a couple of days. But I'm actually doing the audiobook, and I thought the audiobook was a lot more, well, I felt I connected with it more than actually reading the book. I think it's the way the reader was, the way the guy was reading it, the accents he was putting on, I think it really helped in understanding the book. The earlier part of the book, I was actually a little bit confused because I was trying to figure out who's in the car, what's going on. Is everybody dead? Is it, who's dead, who's alive? But then later on, I figured it out. I'm hoping to finish the book, as I mentioned, but I thought the sentence structure in the book was very interesting. Not that I've read so many, Booker Prize winning books, but I thought the language was very interesting. The way he's written it, the way he's described certain things. Again, I don't know too much about, the atrocities that happened in Sri Lanka, but I thought, based on what I was reading, that it was quite interesting. And I'm sad that I don't know too much about what happened at that time. I'm still young, I like to think. But it makes me want to understand and read a little bit more about that time as well. Yeah. But nice presentation, Sheena. Good job.
Thank you.
Very good presentation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, nice is an understatement. Sheena, it was fabulous. It was
I was just
fabulous.
trying to make it, it's difficult, right? So I was just trying to make it more accessible.
Wonderful.
Because, yeah, it's difficult. I can imagine that you stop halfway because it requires a lot of persistence to finish it. It took me 6 weeks the first time, which is a very long time for one book, Yeah.
Yes. So now Kapila and Vijay and Uma, these three people are to speak. So who will
Hi,
go
I think
first?
I have not read the book, but from what Sheena has said about it and described with so many graphic, representations and everything, I think it's rather disturbing. Is it supposed to be a disturbing book? Is it supposed to bring out your inner sensibilities about all that violence and the kind of life this man lived, and about him being a photographer and the pictures he took? So there's a whole lot of things which can be explained only by actually going into it. But I found Sheena's description very, very interesting.
Thank you.
Very
But I
interesting.
think that Sri Lanka went through much worse than what he has written. It lasted 25 years. Look, Maali died in 1989, and that was 6 years into the conflict. But the conflict ended in 2009. So you can imagine what kind of horrors it must have unleashed.
Really?
Yeah.
We read about horrors in all these disturbed areas, Bangladesh, now Ukraine, and so many earlier war zones and all
30
that.
years.
Yes.
So,
But
25 years. Long time.
But now we know what's the position in Sri Lanka. They're completely decimated economically, politically, in every way.
Yeah, I don't know if you all heard his speech when he got the Booker.
No.
It was interesting. So
No.
what he said was, he told the prize, the committee, please can you give me my check in pounds because I don't want it in Sri Lankan rupees for sure. He's got a great sense of humor. So, yeah, because that's the thing. That's what the situation is.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said that. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's it.
No, there were a couple of other people
Huh.
when he had asked. Kapila was one. Ashwini is saying one more there was there.
I just endorse what everyone has said. Besides that, what I found interesting is through the lens of a photographer bringing out this whole situation of Sri Lanka is actually a unique way of writing the book. And I thought that was really, author's point of view, I thought this was excellent. I mean, a very novel, very creative idea. Apart from that, of course, presentation, I think, is what made such a book a little interestingly readable will become. That's what.
Thank you so much.
Kapila, very well said, because this is exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Honestly, Sheena, I got bored reading that. Go and turns me off. But how you presented it, etc., seemed far more interesting. And then, as Moini said, Satish, I think you can read the book now.
Yeah, I think that you need to find out what happens. All those questions have to be answered. Yeah.
Very, very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just about bringing out the story, but also doing it so interestingly as to bring it out through the afterlife. And, I think that was an interesting
format.
way, beautiful format. Yeah. Yeah. It's not an easy book, but it's interesting how he's done it. It's quite
done it
obviously,
beautifully,
reason why he won the Booker for it. Yeah.
Correct.
And also, the disturbance that it creates within you when you think of the politics of that time, the many forces that are trying to suppress facts, right? Which is why his photos are such important evidence. And he hasn't been.
Yeah. There were so many things that I couldn't touch upon because of time. And, that the palace where people are tortured, the way it was described, I don't know if any of you all have reached there, but there's this palace with tinted windows, two-way and all that. And the way people are tortured in that palace, so-called Palace of Horrors, that was too much. That was really, really too much to stomach for anybody. I didn't want to bring that into, because it seems that nobody came out alive from that palace. It was a one-way palace. The only person who came out alive was Maali, because he was not being tortured or anything. But everybody else who was being tortured died there. And he has based this on real things. He's just changed the names. That minister who watched was the real minister. He's just changed the names. These were all real people. The minister, the head of the special task force, all these people, they were all involved in torture and killings and massacres of villages and all that.
But one thing, Sheena, I don't know if you agree with this. Even the IPKF doesn't come out looking pretty in this.
No. We went there to help our Sri Lankan brethren. And Rajiv Gandhi lost his life because of that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
And there's a reference to that hospital massacre. And I actually went to Google and read up on it. It seemed our soldiers had shot up a number of patients in a civil hospital in northern Sri Lanka. That was really quite disturbing, I thought. I don't know to what extent it's true, but it's there in Google. If you go to Google and say
And I didn't tell you all about the cyanide capsules. You all have to read about that as well. That is another spoiler. And no need to go there. Yeah, you have to read about that. You really have to read the book. It's a wonderful layered book. And you will get more reading it the second time, the third time. Yeah, I definitely want to read it again. Maybe
Books like these keep our memories updated. they keep reminding us of all those horrible things which happen, which we read about in the news or see in the news on TV. And then we just, it's covered up by later incidents which happen, in the world. But these particular type of books, if we go into them, they keep us remind us that such things happen and we cannot afford to just overlook it.
I think an important point, when he says that nobody comes out looking pretty, but that is the situation with any kind of conflict. I mean, wars, any kind. No side can come out looking pretty, because once you're in it, you're both of you are brutalized, both sides, good, bad, whatever it is. So the takeaway for us at a distance is that, war is no solution. War only brings out the brutality in humankind, full stop. And it leads to worse. It leads to traumas which you can't heal in a lifetime.
Yeah. No, absolutely, Runa. And I feel that, and just like I was saying with the Sri Lankan authors that are there, it is just it is part of their psyche. They cannot, it's like partition for India, right?
It's like partition.
So many, generations have gone by, and that hurt and all the things that we've gone through have just not, it's not healed for so many people and taken so many generations. I think it's the same for Sri Lanka. It is. And each of these books, the atrocities are true. Like you said, Sheena, this is what happened in Sri Lanka.
But not just Sri Lanka now. You think of any scene of conflict. I mean, you think Ukraine is any different. You think of Nigeria, what's happening
Africa,
there. Think of what's happening in all over the places in Africa. I mean, nowhere is it, look at Mexico, look at Southern America, various places where there is conflict of this kind. It's all exactly the same. Torture, betrayal, all the ghastly stuff. I mean, I would like very much to read this book, but I don't know whether I'll be able to stomach it.
I don't think it's that bad.
No, I have developed a sort of thing about gore, as Mo was saying. I look at it and I tend to back off straight away.
Yeah, the people.
I was much stronger when I was younger.
Is it so bad, Ashwini and Sanjay? It is bad, but not so bad.
No, it's like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Right.
Violence is a medium of other things.
Yes.
So in a Tarantino film, you watch blood splatter, or you see all kinds of gore, but you kind of, I don't know, it's almost like seeing it in a comic book. In one of his movies, he did use a comic, this thing, I think. But so I don't, it's not meant to horrify you. It's just the background against
the
which
idiom
this happened.
I don't like gore either, but I actually saw the whole series of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, me too.
I can't see that stuff anymore.
And
I cannot see Tarantino. I cannot see all this.
Guys.
His heads being chopped off and
Yeah. I read it and watched it.
I had to sit through this, but I sat through it, and I just would just okay.
Oh,
It
I
happened
can't
in
anymore.
every episode, so
Sheena, Sunita,
Yeah.
we have to go. It's already quite
Okay,
late.
sure.
We have to
we
go.
are winding up
We
now.
enjoyed
Yeah.
it very much. Sunita, please take over and wind it whenever it's done, because I see this lot of energy that's in the people there.
No,
And
we all
thank
have
you
to
very
leave. I
much,
have to
Sheena.
leave
That was
as
a
well.
very good show. Please take over. Thank you.
Yes,
you.
and I'll just add one word that the next session is 5th of March, where Sunita is going to tell us about the storied life of A.J. Fikri. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's the next one. And do carry on the discussion.
Thank you.
Bye then.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Enjoy.
Good night.
I have to leave too. So
Yeah, we're at 7:30. If anybody has anything else, we can have a last question or so. If anybody has any, otherwise we can wind up.
Can you tell us in one sentence about the book you're going to present so that we have more people coming more than today anyway?
It's definitely a far easier read than The Seven Moons.
Okay.
Very easy to read. Very delightful book, actually.
not gory.
So yeah, not gory at all. But it's interesting once again as to how the author has actually used a technique in that book in terms of writing it, which I found very interesting. So,
Is it a
so it's well
comedy?
worth pick it up. No, it's not. It's the human emotions, human story.
I missed the name.
that's
I
there.
missed the name. Can you tell?
The Storied Life of A.J. Fikri. There's a movie also that's now out on it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Sheena, should we wind up?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
you.
okay. I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you so much. It's always fun to have people and, keep a discussion going. We always talk about how the discussions are, always get us to understand different perspectives, and we learn so much. Sheena, thank you so much. I'm halfway through this book and I can't even imagine doing a presentation on it. It is not an easy book to read and moreover to do a presentation on. So, and you did such a phenomenal job.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sheena. Thank you. That was lovely.
Yes, that was absolutely phenomenal. Thank you, everybody, and we'll catch
Okay,
you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, Noellen,
Thank
for
you.
joining.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Good night.